So we live right now, and what I want to do is give people some time to get on board.
Hmm.
I think last time you all, I apologize, my fault. For some reason, I know we had a great show, and we kind of I kind of screwed up, and you all missed out on the Reverend Attorney's great wisdom. And so I want to just start giving people a chance to tune in real quickly. Um, as we start to talk about today's topic. And, I saw that there's a lot of debate. Not, I don't know if debate is the right word, but there's a lot of discussion and talk around
Hmm.
the movie Sinners and whether or not people get some of the symbolism or not. Um, and I Tasha and I went to see it. And again, I'm just giving the people a few minutes to
Yeah,
tune in.
yeah,
Tasha and I went to go see it Sunday, and you and I did the show, and I thought it was a good movie. But I wonder. Here's the question that I have for myself:
hmm
that had I not ran into you,
hmm
would I have picked up on all the symbolisms early? And then there were some times in the movie where the brother in me came out like, "Come on, man," you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
Um, And so our topic today, you all, this is the Hollow Black Podcast
yeah.
with my dear friend Reverend Attorney David Hart, and my
Greetings.
brother, and I am your tech guy, Jason Fields. And today's topic, the movie Sinners. And last week when we were together, you really enjoyed the
Absolutely,
movie.
absolutely.
And then yesterday we were at Say's. Congratulations, Say, on
Hmm.
Rasta Batista, right?
Barista, yeah, yeah. He
Barista
just started his new coffee shop.
started his new coffee shop. You all black owned Jamaican. Congratulations to his wife, his family. They doing great stuff in the
Absolutely.
community. And I'm hoping that brother really thinks about franchise model. And so congratulations, Say, to you and your family. But you really enjoyed this movie, man. You came
Yeah,
back yesterday like, Jay, you gotta
gotta
see.
see it. It's a must see.
So let me hit my first question. You
Yeah,
enjoyed it,
yeah.
but what jumped out at you? Because you weren't the only person who we were Anik Dupati. We were all
Hmm.
together.
Hmm.
Was it
Hmm.
Saturday?
Hmm.
And she picked. She said that was. She agreed with you. There are a lot of symbolisms in that movie, and I
Hmm.
know you two are kind of in the arts realm, and so that kind of stuff just naturally flow with y'all. And my old capitalistic self, I had to. I
You
had
said
to.
I saw money, brother.
I,
I saw
I saw the
Kubler,
gold.
right?
I saw
Kubler
the.
was making money, and this is
I
gonna
was
be the
more
thing.
impressed with the idea of starting the juke joint,
I'm not mad at it, brother. He has,
and that the brother did the math very
indeed,
quickly.
indeed, indeed. Yeah, yeah.
But what jumped out at you as Sinners, and do you think people are missing some of this stuff?
I don't think folks are. I think folks are. I'm seeing. I'm really enjoying the analysis that's going on. I think this is going to be a cultural watershed for us. um, but some of the interpretations I don't necessarily share, or
Okay.
I don't necessarily agree with, like Kendrick's halftime show, like books that we read that are culturally relevant for us,
Mm-hmm.
like TV shows, like anything else. um, Folks be carrying things a little bit too far, brother.
Right.
Um, but for this, I will say, and I don't think it's an overstatement to say I think this is a just a really timely allegory on colonialization,
Yeah.
and also a love letter to the diaspora
Mm-hmm.
and its culture and its people. Um, it
I
was just
forgot you were a poet. A love letter. Go
it's
ahead,
just
Q Dog.
it is it is it is just I mean it was just just a very timely piece. So that's how, that's how I saw it. I took I want the boys, my sons, to see it, and
Mm-hmm.
I really want the community to see it. But it's just that I think there's a lot of richness in it, and my hope is that, I mean, always as an artist, um, uh, you keep your interpretation and
Yeah.
your interpretive method to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I hear Kugler is doing some of the interpretation. Um, I think he might have some contractual obligations to do
Yeah.
some of that stuff. um, but yeah, here we are. Here we are. Yeah, brother, it was great. I want to hear what you think, brother.
It was, again, I question, right? Had I went and saw this without bumping into you and hearing the
Indeed,
symbolisms,
indeed.
some of the stuff was intuitive, and then there were moments in the movie where I felt, for example, like and if you all haven't seen it, again, spoiler alert, uh, we'll try to not to ruin it for you, but um, it was one point where something in my spirit, I don't know what it is, and maybe it's because of the African American man with the white woman, or whatever,
Hmm.
half white,
Hmm. Hmm.
when
Hmm.
she went out, it just, something inside me was like, danger, Will Robinson,
No doubt.
danger.
No doubt. No
And then
doubt.
you see what happened,
Right.
and it sort of, it made me think, you live in this world where, you know people still frown, and again, whoever you love is who you love.
Right.
But you look in this world, and it's the Shannon Sharps, and you
Indeed.
see that kind of stuff
Right.
happening,
Right.
and you know you have to go, if he was with a sister, would the same thing have happened? Who knows? Maybe. But that was something that I know that jumped out at me emotionally, that
Indeed.
I looked at and was like, there's a reaction from me,
Right.
because this brother now, because of his relationship, the proximity he was with her, even though she meant well, loved him,
Hmm. Hmm.
look what happened. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right. Well, I think our mixed race listeners would take a little umbrage with
I'm
you
sure they
calling her
would.
white,
Yeah.
but but I think folks who passed in 1937 are different than folks who pass now. I don't even think they.
Before you go there, because
Yeah.
here's the killer part. I'm glad you said that, because even now, am I calling her white because she got the brother killed?
You might be, brother. You might be.
They're because, and they should take, because quite honestly, they are black. I mean, we can get into all that, but even my reaction, like, would I have had a different reaction
Hmm.
if it was a different woman?
Um, Perhaps, brother. I don't know. Maybe if one of the other darker sisters.
That's what I love about the movie. It brought something out of me that made me just question and think. Again, I think it was a great movie.
Hmm.
Um, but that wasn't the only time. It was the time when, wait, why are y'all all coming to this place?
Hmm.
I mean,
Hmm.
outside of the fact that they wanted to, kill, but
Right.
you attracted to the black music, the black passion, the black,
Yeah, I think there's something. You mean the
the villains.
the villain? Yeah. Uh, I think we're supposed to learn something from that.
Mm-hmm.
That there are so the Irish who came here were probably closest
Mm-hmm.
to this country's in this country's oppressive model
Correct.
for Black folk. They were the closest to us. They were the folks who actually cracked the whip. They were the people who actually were the people who ran the plantations day to day. I thought it was very interesting that um, that when the people inside the juke joint asked if they were members of the Klan, he got offended.
Mm-hmm.
He was
That's right.
quite offended by that.
That's right.
And so there was a not only a racial distinction, but there was also a class
Class
distinction.
distinction.
Um, that it's the, I mean, they said that we believe in equality and love and unity and all those things. And um, some of those are Celtic beliefs and sayings, but many of those things, I think you're supposed to, just believe that he's been around for a good while and predates
That's right.
their definition of race. Because as you know, race and racial distinctions, the way that we make them here, didn't necessarily exist um, before 1620.
Yeah.
So I think that was a piece that was in the movie. I think the one of the overarching things that I wanted to add to the landscape that I haven't heard talk too much about is that the movie makes it very clear that it's not going to be our brute strength. It's not going to be the big dude at the door. It's not going to be an army of us. It's not going to be us with an armed militia and an armed revolution. It's going to take collective, calm problem solving from a collective, diverse group of people, and it's going to take some love. They survive. The people who survived through mistakes, through misinterpretations, through all kinds of things, because they loved on each other in the final analysis, from my perspective. So that was just a piece in the landscape that I and all the interpretations I just haven't heard just yet.
Yeah.
But that, I think that was a strong theme. The other piece, I don't think we can ignore that the juke joint. I think from my perspective, it symbolizes, I think, our culture, the diaspora culture, and that I've heard interpretations that the individuals who remained in the juke joint represented the 7 deadly sins, and there's some good arguments that could be made for each of them. Many of some, one is not motivated by money, but by excess and gluttony and drinking all he can drink, and others are motivated by by sexual moves, and others are envious and so forth. So there's a thing that could be made about the 7 deadly sins and their sinners and so forth. But I think it's hard to escape that Coogler wanted us to see the juke joint as a surrogate for our culture. The very beautiful scene that we see at the like maybe quarter way through the movie, where they're dancing in the juke joint, and there's just this transformation where we're hearing blues, we're hearing grassroots blues.
I thought that was well done.
Yeah,
man. It was a beautiful combination of music, our culture, all under one roof, all coming from us out of us. I thought he did a beautiful job with portraying it.
But and then one moment you see the DJs turning, and then you see some folks twerking, and then you see some 70s music, and you see, I mean, I think he did a masterful job there. But I think there's no escaping that we're supposed to see the juke joint as the purest form and the highest form of our culture. he comes back from whatever shadiness is going on in Chicago. He buys it.
Yep.
He buys it, and he outdoes the Anglos. He gets this land. We hear tales that it's cursed from the beginning. But how many times have we heard that the land that we sit on, or the places that is not for us, but we figure out how to make a way out of no way. So I don't think there's any escaping that the the juke joint was supposed to be a vehicle for a surrogate for our culture. We see the passing of the baton from, or the introduction of, of the new artists,
right,
of the old artists, and from the old come the new. Just a lot of, I mean, the embracing, the only person who knew, who could give them a contextual framework for how to fight, of course, first of all, was the Black woman,
right,
but it was also the Black woman who was rooted in traditional
yes,
medicine, traditional
yes,
space.
yeah,
And our grandmothers and great grandmothers
mm-hmm.
didn't call it voodoo.
Voodoo.
They just, I mean, they would say things, or they would mix up
Yeah.
something. Well, why did you try ginger root, and did you try
And
rub
we
your
still
feet?
do that
That's
stuff to this
real
day.
talk. Just rub your
Yeah,
feet.
we still do that to this
That's
day.
real. And so I thought that was really interesting, that she was the only individual that could steer them in the direction of of fighting, and putting her arms around the context in which they were able to, that they were she correctly identified what they were,
Mm-hmm.
and put the parameters and rules. What do you make of the influence of Asian culture?
I found that, it was, when Asian culture, because Asian folks were, maybe not as much in the doghouse as Black folks, but again, who were. But I found the play of different cultures and races, with the Native Americans being the first people to run him down and go, hey, that person is not what they see. Even to the point where that person ran into a safe space, and why wouldn't it have been safe? I mean, look at the scenario.
Right. That's right.
Interesting approach to, how they were, not necessarily side by side, but how they played a role in helping, the brothers do some stuff that, again, just how they've been around with those brothers and helping them do whatever it is they do. And how it was all transactional. It had really, in my opinion, it had nothing to really do about relationship and camaraderie. It was all business, and even to this day, I can make the argument or debate that we still see some of that today. In our communities, you see more Asian shops. And again, I'm not saying everybody's this way, but it ain't about camaraderie. It ain't
Right.
it's about business.
Indeed. I thought it was interesting that their business was the only business that, again, could be on the Black side and also the white side.
Yeah.
And I've only seen the movie once. I'd like to see it another time or two, but I would bet dollars to donuts that they had one price for the store on the Black side,
at one price,
and another price for the white, for our Anglo friends.
I
bet it.
It is. There are so many mirror images of even today, which again, I think for everybody, you have to take it. You have to, look at how you feel about it, and particularly certain things. One of the things that stuck out with me was what the villain was offering in his approach to, hey, I'm building a community where we all could be equal, no more racism. But yet, based on assimilation.
Yes.
So
yes.
you it's the same approach. We all can be this, but you gotta accept what I'm selling, what I'm giving.
They didn't even have to be inside of the culture, inside of the juke joint,
right,
in order to influence and disrupt. Maximum. And so they took everybody outside of. They took just about everybody outside of the juke joint, and like you said, caused them. I never saw so many Black folk doing the jig,
river
dancing, brother. I've just never seen it. But
It was a beautiful
it
move to
was
go
it
from
was awesome.
when we were all dancing in the
It was
juke
awesome. It
to
was awesome.
now.
It was awesome.
And they didn't even look like they knew how to dance because it was like, wait, what is this?
Yeah, it was awesome.
You know, I think is one of the things that really the struggle of your faith and whatever it is, and
Hmm.
again, it's low level, the temptation stuff that you have to deal with. But what stuck out to me when he said, "Why didn't your mojo work on our baby, man?"
Hmm. Hmm. And what did you
And
make of that?
you know, I think again, you have a brother that was traumatized, been traumatized, um, from day one,
Hmm.
looking for love and satisfaction again, typical in the wrong places, even to the point where his dependency on his relationship with his brother
Hmm.
had him, make some of the decisions that he made. I mean, and he thought he was doing something good by again protecting them, not hurt, not giving up on them. And I think I get that, but his struggle with faith and higher powers versus, hey, I only understand business and money.
Right.
Yo mojo, and I love her comeback. Yo, my mojo been working for you,
Hmm. Hmm.
and you even see a glimpse of that in it. So his struggle with, I think, brothers struggle, particularly. I think y'all look at my own life where you get to this point where you like, yo, man, where was all this faith and love at? But then you realize you've been looking at it wrong. You know what I mean? And so I thought it was I thought, as you said, the allegories, the symbolisms to a number of things were just fascinating to me. I love the fact that you mentioned the point that had never been brought up. Love how the 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 assimilation stuff
Hmm.
played a role into you know even who they are. Why were all these folks white when they came? You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Hmm.
um and here you have two groups of white people, the ones who ready to kill you, even though both of them ready to kill you,
Hmm. Hmm.
but one is offering you a different kind of lifestyle. Again, you got to die, you got to accept it.
That's right.
And then there's one that they ain't offering nothing, they just ready to kill you.
Yeah.
And so it was a lot to it that I think, I wonder, in this day and age, how will our community react and respond to it? I thought it was a good movie, man. I thought it was a very artistic movie. And
I
I'm
think.
not a very artistic kind of guy, but I I love it that it made me feel a number of different emotions
Yeah. Yeah.
throughout the entire movie.
It will be interesting to see uh, how we interpret this and how we use this to move forward. When I was watching uh, the halftime show, the Super Bowl halftime show, I was proud of Lamar Kendrick,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, uh, was proud that he used his stage and his in that moment, um, to try to move humanity forward
Yeah.
and to try to move Black humanity forward. And everybody had their all the interpretations of Samuel Jackson and the flag being made solely out of Black people,
Mm-hmm.
and the prison yard, and all of those things, and the little A
That's
on
right.
his neck. um, we were interpreting it and interpreting it and interpreting, and you know um, when we're on a stage that big, uh, Anglos are going to hear and see and start to be confused or start to try to make sense. And they're like, well, maybe we don't know all of the things that are going on in here, but we know enough to know that there's trouble here.
Mm-hmm.
For the interpretations of this are troubling to us, and that they don't mean all that well for us.
Mm-hmm.
We have a distinct history of having to encode our messages to each other. And are we slipping at that? Maybe. That we have to, that we used to send in drum beats and
That's right.
in slave songs and
Mm-hmm.
in church songs. I got a robe, you got a robe, all God's children got robes. When I get to heaven, gonna put on my robe.
Mm-hmm.
We would be blessing the slave master out right in front of his face,
Mm-hmm.
and they think we just out here.
Singing.
That's right. I was a little concerned this, in the halftime show that we wouldn't use that to transform ourselves to as a place, especially in 2025 and beyond, when when there are I mean we're literally watching them tell you that their
That's right.
uncomfortability
That's right.
with black things,
Mm-hmm.
and having to talk about oppression, having to talk about slavery, having to talk about things that are factual that they want to keep off the table.
That's right.
Um, we see those things real time at work, and so forth. And I was very concerned that we were, the the we were patting ourselves on the back because the first level was we got
We
it,
got
and
there.
and so other people didn't get the interpretations and the allegory. But there's a third step, action.
Mm-hmm.
And so my hope is, um, you know, Kugler, did, of course, did Black Panther, and is moving forward with Black Panther. And I understand that this Sinners is an entire universe where there's 7 or 8 films in the works. but are we going to use this as a jumping off point, as a place where we transform the way that we're fighting? I mean, we literally have less rights today
Right.
than we did 10, 20, 30 years ago. And so what are we going to do with it?
Let me ask you this question. I mean, because when you look at what's happening today, and to your point, are we missing it? Right? Are
Mhm.
we? Because there are times where we all understood it, or not. I won't say all, but we understood the symbolism. We, as you said, it's in our culture, it's in our DNA.
Mm-hmm. To have to look at a thing,
Yes.
and see what's behind it.
So whose responsibility is it that we are now losing that? Because at some point when you start tracking it, did we get comfortable, or did we start believing the lie, right? That,
Mm-hmm.
hey, you talk to some young folks, and this is not an attack on young people or
Indeed.
next generation, but I think if you talk to some of them, it's not as prevalent or on their minds as much as it is on you and I.
Indeed.
Because we look at this stuff and go, hey, we remember times where you had to be twice as hard, twice as smart. You had to do all that stuff,
and you still do.
and you still do. But
You still
there
do.
is this, dare I say, doubt on do you?
Yeah, I'm not trying to cast aspersions
Right.
on anyone's legacy, but we continue to pay the heftiest of prices for having a Black president. I mean that with my heart.
Mm-hmm.
We pay one of the heftiest prices daily, and I think that's part of the reason why they don't mind having a bankrupt, lying 34-time felon in that office. um, because when Black folk touch something, when they get into your pool, when they come into your neighborhood, when they go into your store, when whatever it is that we're doing, they see it as ruined.
Mm-hmm.
When we date your daughters, we see those things. They're sullied now, and so the office of presidency is sullied because a Black man who has never had 3 wives and side pieces and jump offs and porn stars, and nobody's ever come out of the woodworks on him, and did nothing but right for the rightist that he could. But I think that is that gave us folks who are 2024 today grew up with this post-racial uh, assumption. I mean, there's still white progressives on my timeline who say, I don't think Kamala lost because of race. I don't think that this right. I don't think that. I mean,
What do they think it was? She's a horrible speaker.
well, right,
Like really?
because the Democratic apparatus wasn't good enough, because she was wavering on Israel and Palestine, because she was this, because she was that. Nobody wants to acknowledge that it was because of race.
Mhm.
But I think young folks 19 to 25 or so, I think they live in they there was this notion. I think George Floyd did much to disavow that.
Mhm.
I think the hundreds into thousands of black people that have been murdered by the state have done, and we've been able to see that on
That's right.
video. Cats running away unarmed
Being
on a
shot.
traffic stop,
Yeah.
shot in the back 6 times, and then they push the gun over to them to try to make it look like
Mhm.
they were trying to shoot. It's pathetic. Um, so I think there was this notion that we live in this post-racial society, and it just doesn't exist. But but many of the things that we were taught, that we have to be 5 times. We
That's right.
literally have to be 5 times better. They still have that onus, but they don't understand. They don't understand how to. I'm sitting here talking to my sons right now about how to thrive and to stay afloat in the workforce.
Mhm.
Even around black folk, you have to be careful around. You have to take your notes, and you have to, you have to be great. And it still may not, it may still not come out with the right result all the time. But I think the advent of a black president really did a lot um, to help us realize that we could do some things.
Mhm.
But I think it did more for progressive Anglos to say we did this, and so now we don't have to do this again. I've literally seen on my timeline. I said this is the reason why Kamala did not win, is because she is a black woman, and they see black women, first of all, differently, and they're differently than they see black men. That's number one. We have our own sets of
That's
fears
right.
that folks have to overcome. but but please believe. There's just really no reason. This man doesn't have political experience. He doesn't have legislative experience. He's not a good business person. He's a felon. There's no other reason.
I find it, very either disingenuous
Indeed.
that at some point you are either afraid to admit that we're still in this place where if you compare and put two people side by side, and Eddie Glaude Jr., I think from Princeton, I think said it best. This country showed us that you'd rather have a white man who's a liar, a sexist, a misogynist, a racist, a criminal. You rather have this person over this other woman who you labeled. And I see some of the silly stuff. She can't talk. You don't become the district attorney for the state of California and the vice president of the United States of America
That's
by
right.
not being able to know how to talk.
Yeah.
Or she's dumb. She got at least 2 to 3 degrees.
That's right. That's right. She is brilliant. But yeah, folks on my timeline are still saying, yeah, I'm not sure that it was because she was black, because we elected a black president, because we did, and we there were a lot of reasons why that happened,
Mm-hmm.
like most of which have to do with this country was in a desperate place, that that we just said we'll just give it a shot.
What do you say to people who say we're race baiters? We race baiting.
Yeah, of course they would say that.
Mm-hmm.
Literally. I mean, that's that is
The default.
not only the default, but it is the gaslighters playbook, but it's also the fascist playbook. It's also the Southern strategy. Everything that we are will put and impute on our enemy.
Are you surprised by the fact that when you look at similarities between how countries have come under rule of dictatorship,
Mm-hmm.
that we seem to be heading the same way, and there should be more folks in the uproar when you have a person talking about, hey, I'm gonna run for another term, whether he joking or not, who compare himself to the Pope, whether he joking or not, who clearly just lies, who's clearly making laws and signing executive orders that specifically only benefit him and his people.
Mm-hmm.
Are you surprised that there are more people not in the uproar?
No, actually, I'm not. Actually, I'm not. I mean, how did he get into office in the first place? Twice. We got on this train twice with a 4-year break. No, I'm not. I'm not at all surprised. Uh, um, and you know, sycophantic bending and bowing. I mean, it's frankly disappointing and sad to see. Uh, you know, a noted bishop of the Catholic Church, um, they will bend over backwards
Mm-hmm.
to twist this degradation of their faith
Mm-hmm.
and what they believe um, into something that was just a tasteless joke. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it. Can you? I mean, I find myself saying this until I'm petered out, but simply imagine Barack Obama doing any of this,
Yeah.
putting himself in the Pope's.
Post.
I mean, and then posting it not just on his account,
Mm-hmm.
but on the White House official White House account.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine,
And
you
then
know,
lying about saying he lying about it. Like, we know it's you.
yeah,
You do this kind of stuff all the time. We know it's
yeah.
you.
Imagine him falling for a Photoshop image of, you know,
The knuckle
that's
M30.
of yeah. I mean, imagine any of this stuff that's occurring right now. Imagine any of that happening with Barack Obama. So yes, I mean, our kids, and young folk, youth in our community have the same standard. I mean, they have the same expectations, um, but they're they believe that I think they still assume that this is post-racial. I think, you know, the just that whole disrespectful line of argument that I hear, that I'm not my ancestors. Well, you would be you.
Yeah.
You're right. You're right. You're not our
Not by
ancestors.
long, so.
Our ancestors were tough and strong, and they could, you know, they had to handle stuff uh, that I couldn't even imagine. You know, I think another thing that has worked on our community is segregation, desegregation. Um, uh, when we were segregated, I'm not saying things were great.
Right.
We have never had a separate but equal. We've never lived under Plessy. We've never had separate but equal. but usually, as the sun-kissed from the diaspora do, when you whip us,
Mm-hmm.
when you beat us, when you oppress us, when you make the circumstances impossible for us, we make the impossible possible,
right,
through God. And so time again, you send us out to 18-hour days, and we turn that into a religion that has blessed, you know, that has drawn us closer to God. We have created dozens of art forms and music forms that y'all would love to play and love to be around and love to be up under. Who else but Black folk could have and oppressive being oppressed in this way and being resilient in this way have created jazz and created blues and created dubstep and created hip hop and created disco and you know, and created house music and rock and blues. I mean, and so when we were in a segregated model, we in spite of everything that they did to marginalize us, keep us out of the way, so they thought that we believed that being around Anglos was the prize.
I agree.
And so when they saw towns and parts of cities and villages and communities that were, I mean, they were literally, I mean, we can count over 50 to 70 communities that were, and perhaps well, that's actually there were hundreds of them.
Yeah.
But I could put my hands on 70 or better that were thriving. I mean, Black Wall Street, or many towns in Florida, Seneca in New York, thriving. And so they see that we're thriving, and instead of saying, okay, I respect that, they just come in and literally bomb it to death, kill everybody, burn it to the ashes, and and so forth. And so they said, okay, that model's not working because they're thriving. So we're going to put them up under us in a desegregated method. But we're not we're not going to give them any of the rights and benefits of being a part of the society fully. We just want to keep a better eye on them.
Right.
So I think desegregation has continued to be in the form that they have given it to us, has been very destructive for us. So if we're going to be integrated in this society, give us full rights, give us or simply give us what we've earned.
Right.
I'm not asking for any handout, but you'll give reparations to
everybody else, but black.
not just everybody else, but y'all just gave $30 million to a person who tried to overthrow the government.
Yeah.
And died through her own actions. We gave her $30 million, and that's all I'm gonna say, because I don't want us to get canceled mid-sentence and so forth. You know what I'm saying? That's real talk, brother. That's real talk. That's real talk. This cat is intent on arresting.
But it's hard not to get to feel that passion and pain and disgust when you see these. I think I was watching something. A young lady, young African American baby boy, whatever, 5 years old, was doing something wrong. The young lady called him the N-word, and she done raised $700,000.
That's right.
Wait,
That's right.
what?
That's right.
The kids, you look at, and the same things that are happening. Again, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but when I see the president and you see what's happening in Africa, and you start connecting the dots, all these countries and places going in, pillaging, raping the minerals, the resources. And now it's a problem when these black leaders start to stand up for themselves and say, hey, we don't need you all here. And Trump says, hey, you all can come, white folks can come over to America. He's literally, white folks can come over to America.
Said that.
In fact, if you got money, you can buy your way in.
That's right.
And on the flip side of that, y'all can come here, and yet I'm going to be behind the folks who are in Africa taking those people's land and not paying them fairly, not treating them, not doing economic development, just getting over.
That's right.
And then when we say things like, you don't see the racism and all of that? Well, no. Well, what is it?
Well, he said he was the least racist person on earth, and definitely the least racist president, and the person who's done the most for black folks. Meanwhile, our museums, our national museums
he's shutting them down. He's trying to take away.
Indeed.
And so you may say but your actions show us differently.
Indeed.
Do you think this is the time, or this will lead to a black reconnecting of, because this is some stuff that we deal with at the center. We're inviting all the entire black diaspora. Shouts out to
what center is that, Jason?
The Center for Black Excellence in Culture.
Oh, isn't that something? Well, we got a Center for Black Excellence. Ooh.
Center for Black Excellence in Culture, which, again, thank you for all your support. In looking at black folks and saying, you know what, it's time we stop thinking of just locally, but we start thinking globally. We start making these connections to the motherland, to our brothers and sisters in Ghana, Jamaica, the Caribbean. Because at the end of the day, regardless of where you at, we all getting treated the same way. Do you think this will be a revolution to make that more of a reality?
I'm certainly hopeful. I was encouraged with with the protests in 2020 uh, when George Floyd was lynched. But but I think that's another part of why we're sitting here where we are. I mean, we had businesses and
That's
corporations
right.
and individuals and nonprofits and folks that that were making promises and doing things to 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 say, we're going to finally, we finally heard y'all. We
Mm-hmm.
finally heard y'all. This when that man was struggling for his life for 9.5 minutes, that did something to us. And
Mm-hmm.
so it hurts. And so we gonna do something. We see you. We go. And so within 18 months, those things started to dissipate. And not only did they start dissipating, but but those folks that are working right around Donald Trump, the people who were the architects of Project 2025, started designing this, and so this backlash that we're seeing, I think, is due in part to the gains we made. Is not only with Obama, not only with our civil rights movement, not only with our with I mean, they even stole the term woke, but
Yeah.
it's always been for decades a thing of pride for us. But I think after George Floyd, there was a real awakening of Anglos, and people on that side of the table say this is really our last stand. Um, we're they see this country as theirs, that there's this ownership, and that the fact that they have to not just concede power to us, but just simply share the table with
Mm-hmm.
us. That for them, equality for them really feels like oppression.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have decades of oppression, decades of discrimination, decades of harm and trauma created by this government. And so when we try to remediate past discrimination, they're talking about that's illegal and criminal.
Mm-hmm.
So it's my hope that the halftime show. It's my hope that Kugler. It's my hope that Spike, and all of the other artistic revolutionaries and all of the other uh, principled revolutionaries lead us to. I hope that we're part of that revolution. That we move and elevate ourselves, uh, but it's beset with obstacles. Um, it's beset with obstacles. I think I'm encouraged because we have seen a sustained effort. Like I said, I think we talked about this in our last episode that didn't nobody hear.
Yeah.
That I'm
My
proud.
bad.
That has nothing to do with you, brother. We were just out here talking to each other, brother. But I'm proud of us that we are understanding that we have to change the way that we shop,
That's
that
right.
we do business, that we must be respected, and that we need to be spending our money and doing things, and being in those places that were celebrated, not
That's right.
simply tolerated. And so I'm proud of us, and pleased to see the sustained effort against Target, the sustained uptick in Costco.
Mm-hmm.
So rewarding businesses
That
that
treat us right.
I see Black women getting into business. I see entrepreneurship. I see revolutions happening all the time. I see us, going into court
Mm-hmm.
and fighting for some of these things. So I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm cautiously enthused and energized. But I I say this carefully. I don't. We're in some dark times,
Yeah.
brother. We're in really dark times. This is this is a man who's moved. This is a force that's moving rapidly to uh, denigrate, um, move to take away our rights, move to slash budgets
Mm-hmm.
and in institutions. Just just at warp speed. I mean, really, if since we're talking about Coogler, and I'll move us back to, because I want to hear your thoughts on a thing back in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But really, it's like if we go back to a Coogler classic um, scene, it's like Killmonger
Mm-hmm.
in Black Panther.
Mm-hmm.
Killmonger understood because he'd been in Anglo
Mm-hmm.
spaces, Anglo
Yep.
uh, armies, and this is a killing machine.
That's
He
right.
understood that in order to fully take control of that mantle of prince or king,
Mm-hmm.
he needed to disintegrate all of the history.
That's right.
He needed to take care of all the history, and that was the first thing he ordered them to do.
Mm-hmm.
He ordered them to burn. He said, "Burn it all, burn all this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want anything left. I want all the healing mechanisms. I want all the institute. I want all of the mechanisms you use to remember how we got here. I want all that burned."
Mm-hmm.
And so he's moving like that. He's just moving with warp speed, and it's just breathtaking to see.
Mm-hmm.
I want to hear your thoughts on the use and the significance of money
Yeah.
in the movie.
You know, man, it was when he brought out when I first saw the gold pieces. What first came to mind was I read First Timothy 6 verse 10, and
Mhm.
for the love of money
That's right.
is the root to all sorts of evil. And in the film, it stood out, it's shining. And it just reminded me that when we start talking about money, and if you love that more than you love what God is doing or giving you,
Hmm.
it won't be long before it won't be long.
Hmm.
Or anything you love more. But I thought the use of money from the point of, hey, we're not even using this kind of money before. They're not even taking that. And the young lady sticking with what she knows when the young girl came in for the healing ointments and herbs.
Hmm.
She had her currency. She wanted to stick with it. It reminds me of just, again, it's capitalism at its best, where,
Indeed.
you know, either you're forced to adapt, pivot, and come on board, or not.
Hmm.
And what happens if you don't do that? I love the fact that explored a number of items around, particularly who was it, Delroy Lindo,
Hmm.
when the currency wasn't his thing.
Exactly. So that's where I want to go with you.
Yeah, the
Is
currency wasn't important to him.
ultimately, ultimately, it didn't save anybody.
It didn't.
It didn't.
It
So
didn't.
because at the end,
Yeah.
you saw them talk. Well, I got money. That guy said,
Yeah.
I really don't care. I got a lot of guns and I got a lot of ammo that I need to use.
It's almost weird how little of a role money played,
Hmm.
that made people make certain decisions.
Indeed.
You know what I mean? Outside of, it didn't save anybody, and in a lot of cases, it wasn't what people really wanted. Outside of, I think, one of the brothers who just look. And I don't even think he wanted the money versus he wanted to have some for himself, a lifestyle, what have you. But it was amazing to me, the different aspects of how important money is to and not to certain
Indeed.
people.
The ones you see the ones who money influenced them
Yep.
and motivated them,
Mm-hmm.
created real issues
Yes, it did.
for the
Yes, it did for
for the
everybody.
protagonist.
Yes, it did.
The woman who ran the shop,
Mm-hmm.
they haggled over the price,
That's right.
and she, and she did things that she didn't really want to do because of the money. She did a sign. She you know she this catfish and
Right.
this that and the other, um, that created problems for everybody. And to your point, the sister who you called white, um, she said, well, they've got money to spend, and everybody was like, who cares? Look at they not talking like we talking. We gonna end up dead.
Right, something ain't right.
Right, we gonna end up dead. Why can't they have 100? They have 100 places that they can go to.
Right. Why they here?
That's right. That's right. So yeah, it was interesting. I wanted to hear your thoughts on the money piece, on the aspect.
When I'm watching artistic movies, I lean in more intuitively about what makes me question and feel certain things or certain emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it was the lure of the money when he first came out. It was shiny, it was worth a lot. But then, as you said, you start watching it and you had these discussions, you realize the money were the people who were causing the most problems.
That's right. That's right.
And then what dictate what kind of currency? Again, the alcohol was the currency for Delroy Lindo in that movie. And Jesus wanted to be in a place where he could drink and have a good time, man. But
right.
Again, and then at what point money is not important? And should we be moving towards some of that stuff as far as community? Because what I did like is that you see those glimpses where community is strong, right? Like, hey, we don't care about their money.
That's right. That's right.
We good. We don't need that. And so that lure didn't work for them.
Yeah.
Whereas in this day and age, and money, you start talking about money now, and I think you start looking at what everybody wants to be, a social media influencer. Why? It's that vanity, it's that hubris, it's that money that you can get paid or make a lot of money to be seen. That's just vanity. So I love the fact that it was just, I had a number of emotions in it, and things that I was just like, One of the things that also struck me was when the villain at the end and towards the end of the movie, he said, yeah, when they were saying the Lord's Prayer, he was like, they all started saying, he was like, man, the same dude that taught me that prayer treated me like, and I'm just like, wow, and I think it's growing up in the old school where we were always taught, the prayers and all that stuff, war keeps away spirits. Well, at the same time, you gotta have faith, man. Anybody, the devil can mumble a bunch of words.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
So the words ain't what protect you. It's the what you have inside, and that's what it just that jumped out at me. Like, man, anybody can read some scriptures.
Yeah.
But where's that gonna get you if there is nothing internal, deep, strong in that links you?
Yeah. I mean, and some of that's evidenced by the rapid transition of Preacher Boy to, so all of a sudden now he wanted to go to Chicago. And so, if you don't
jumped in the world quick, didn't
you? If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
Jumped in the world quick.
Yeah, you'll fall for anything. My last word tonight on this is, there was a scene at the beginning of the movie when they were riding around in the Ford, and they were talking about the lynching of a man, and as they were explaining it, I mean, you could just feel it was a guttural, primal, like I mean, it was just an inhumane.
You felt the pain.
Yeah, and he started tapping. I mean, he was just rapping on his leg, and that's literally how blues was created. That's literally how that's literally how it was created. We took pain and we made it into something. And I just think I just want to end it on that, just my piece on just how glorious it is to look back on all the things that our ancestors have been through, and we're still here, and
Mm-hmm.
we still. I mean, I feel like our best days are still ahead, um, but I wanted to lift that up in the final piece. So I'll end like I began. It's not our brute strength. It's not going to be our brute strength that gets us through this this mess in 2025 and beyond. It's going to be our collective calm working together, finding solutions together, and it's going to be love.
And that's where we'll leave it, everybody. Y'all been listening and watching the podcast, the Holla Black podcast with David and Jason. We'll see y'all next time.